All right, we're talking with British Army veteran Leroy Roberts with Teamwork Solutions Limited. Leroy, thanks for being on the show. Look forward to hearing your story. Take us back and tell us what you did in the British Army.
No, thank you so much, Joe. It's amazing, and I'm happy for the opportunity to be on your platform and to share with your amazing audience. So, my role in the British Army was that of a tripartite one, obviously, as a soldier first, then as a combat engineer, and also I had a third role, which is my artisanal trade as a engineer logistics specialist. So those were the three areas that I covered.
Okay. And how long were you in the British Army?
Just over 8 years.
Oh wow. Okay. Awesome. And when you got out, what was your transition like? Did it go smoothly? Were you prepared? Did you know it was coming in advance? Did it happen quick for you?
Well, to start out with, my career actually was cut short, unfortunately, by an injury.
Hmm.
And that muddied the waters a bit because I was trying my very best going through rehab to see how best I could fix that. But as secure as you think an army job would be, there are some injuries can make that far, far less secure.
Hmm.
So I had an idea that it was coming, but there was no certainty as to the timeline. And that, of course, always add the tricky element to it. But the transition, I think, was a mixed one. And what I would always say, you get out what you want to get out of it,
Hmm.
because you have to be really intentional and you have to be sure that you have a plan. And I would always say, ask as much questions as you can and network with a lot of people. And that's what I did. And that's what I think made the transition a bit better for me.
Yeah. I know the US spends a lot of money on transition programs for the military. And like you said, you can get out of it what you want to get out of it. Some people don't speak too highly of them, but I think a lot of them are pretty well funded and sophisticated in how they go about properly transitioning. But in the end, it's really up to the veteran themselves to make it all work for them. So, in the British Army, do you guys get a lot of support with that? Do you have a good transition programs, and is are there a lot of uh, commercial companies, civilian companies looking to hire British veterans in your economy?
Yeah, so we do have a transition process. There, of course, you have organizational agency that does managing the whole, we call it the resettlement process.
Hmm.
Um, Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, for me, when I was getting out, there was a change in contract. So there was a bit of a lot of teething issue that was popping up at the time. And that, of course, really muddied the waters somewhat. However, my case was rather different because I knew very well that I was going to go down the path of entrepreneurship.
Hmm.
And given again that the grounds on which I came out being a medical one, that really limited my chances of picking up some of what I would consider to be natural fits.
Hmm.
So I had to transition totally into a new space. But of course, whilst there are many institutions here that do sign the what we refer to here as the Armed Forces Covenant, and they will definitely look out for veterans and serving members and help them with offering them employment opportunities. But of course, those comes with their own pros and cons, and you have to think about that seriously. And sometimes, it is not what it appears to be at face value. But by and large, there are schemes in place. But I think it boils down to yet again what I said earlier, and that is up to the service personnel. What is it that they personally want to achieve?
Hmm. So where did you end up landing when you first got out of the army?
So with my transition, because I realized quite clearly that my options were very, very limited. Given my condition, I could not fit in certain areas. So I looked at myself, I looked at the skills I had, and I said, all right, fine. Here it is. I've done almost 2 decades in the work world. Good thing for me, I had a law enforcement background before the military and not the other way around, as most of my colleagues normally do. I had a long-standing relationship of working with teams and organization that are team-based. So that philosophy was there. Also, one of the things that served me extremely well is the fact that during my final years in service, I did work closely with a number of nonprofits because I am a director with one of the largest London-based credit union in the UK.
Hmm.
Also work with the forum that manage the credit unions across the entire London and south of England. So
Yeah.
those organization really helped me to get an exposure as to what the work world was like. And also it also positioned me well with my business interests, which was specifically tailored towards the corporate space and also all business and organization that work with teams.
Yeah. And so walk us through a little bit some of the progression of how you started there and ultimately worked into more entrepreneurship and what you're doing now.
Yeah. What I will always tell people is that whenever you, like for me, entrepreneurship, I knew that was my pathway because the other pathway was no longer viable given
Right.
my particular circumstances at the time. And as a result of that, entered in the space, of course, there was a bit of uncertainty, and you were questioning whether or not are they really going to accept what I have, and just the whole idea of translating your military speak into the language of your ideal target audience and
Mm-hmm.
the people to serve. And I think the best way how I got a better understanding of that was during the time when I pretty much invested heavily in the voluntary space that allowed me to get a full immersion as to what the civilian world was like. And I was not totally unfamiliar with that, having served in law enforcement and other agencies prior to the military. But that reintroduction was very, very vital. And having done that, it positioned me well to understand the language of the marketplace and to also understand the problems of the marketplace. And whilst volunteering, that actually helped me to fine tune exactly what problem I specifically wanted to solve. And that set me up well for when I launched my business. So I would definitely say to anyone, volunteering is a very good thing because it's a good introduction back into
Mm-hmm.
this. And one of the things that it does for you is give you exposure, and you never know what the next step might be for you. So exposure is good, and volunteering is a key for that exposure.
All right, back talking with British Army veteran Leroy Roberts with Teamwork Solutions Limited. So, Leroy, in the U.S., there's actually some government funded programs, military funded programs where you can actually get out or in the last few months of your contract, leave your unit early as long as the CO approves it, and you can go to work for a nonprofit and they'll pay you a stipend, so you actually have a decent amount of income, pay your bills while you're volunteering at a nonprofit. And so the nonprofit gets a good volunteer, a good employee without having to come out of their pocket with it, and it gives the veteran a chance to volunteer in the community where they want to live and figure out, start getting adjusted to the civilian world and that kind of thing. So it's interesting. You're somebody that actually did that, got into the volunteering space, and help yourself get acclimated to the civilian world.
No, you're perfectly right. The only slight difference with things on this side of the pond is that in that space, you're not allowed to receive any benefit whatsoever during that transitional phase.
Mm-hmm.
So unlike on your side of the fence where you can benefit from some gratuity of some kind, on this side, it really is about commitment. And I think for the area that I went into, I think the core values were quite similar to the values that we would have been quite, and I say we, myself and you included, having served in the military space. Core values are key things for us, and I was drawn in by the cause of that institution.
Hmm.
And I think it was a great fit. It was hand in glove.
Yeah. So how did you get into the coaching and consulting space?
So when I looked at my background and I recognized that I have immense value, and I think most service personnel tend to stumble at this area because they have a difficulty communicating the value they have. And I mean, we have immense value having served in the organization. The way I always describe it is that I have over 660 years worth of history from two um, massive organization that has been around. And that gives me history, that gives me a frame of reference. For example, the British Army traces its roots back to 1660. And I served the Caribbean in the Jamaica Constabulary Force, which traces its roots back to 1716. So collectively, you're talking about in excess of 660 years.
Hmm.
So when we get into the space of leadership and team, we know what we're talking about because we have that history, we have a frame of reference, and we can draw from our experience having served in two organizations that has been around for well over half half a millennia.
Yeah.
And in order for them to have survived the test of time, it means that they are doing something correct. And there are many foundational principles that I drew from them and also created my own spin to give my unique touch and taste to leadership and coaching.
Yeah. So talk to us about some of your experiences with certain companies or certain coaching success stories, if you will.
Yes. So one of the problem that we still see a lot, and that's one of the things I have experienced is in the coaching space, is that a lot of people still have the concept that it's once and done. They think, oh, we get somebody in, do a workshop, do a day's training, that's it. But you and I know that from our previous experience that we do continuous training on an annual basis. And there is a rotation of training that is almost like a cycle
Hmm.
that to for us to maintain that battle rhythm and to ensure that we are equipped, we are up to date with the latest policies, and of course we are able to give our of our best in the most demanding of circumstances. And I think a lot of organizations, while they have invested a lot in training program, you still have to remind them gently that in order for you to do well in this space and to motivate harmonious and profitable and teams which are highly motivated, you need consistent practice, you need motivation, and you need feedback. And that has to be done on a continuous basis. And those are some of the things that I deliver through the services we offer through our company. And we guaranteed results because it works.
Yeah. And so what are some of the like walk us through the experience if somebody were to hire you and how like walk us through the timeline and um kind of so it's walk the dog for us.
Yes. So one of the things that I deal with specifically, we solve the problem of disconnect. So we help leaders who struggle with disconnected and disengaged teams in the workplace and who constantly struggle with issues like low morale, high turnover, and decreased profitability. And with our unique coaching program, when we step into that space and consultancy services as well, we guarantee um, that they will have a fully functional, harmonious, and motivated team within 90 days, and that will contribute directly to the bottom line. And we draw on the principle that is rooted into the training that I received from both of those institutions I mentioned earlier. And it's amazing. And just to share an example with you, when you see people joining the military that I've been a part of from the Commonwealth, and when you have all that diverse background and all the challenges and advantages that comes with that, and when you can see within 14 weeks, how you can transform a unit that is so disjointed, and yet still you can have them very organized, harmonized, and fully functional, and everybody know that what the main goal is, and they can work together for a common good, and they can also be rightly aligned to their strengths so that they can give off their very best. And that's what we want to replicate in the services that we offer, and we have been seeing tremendous results by doing that.
What do you think causes this disconnect and lack of communication in most companies?
And that's a perfect question. And one of the key areas here is most people don't realize how important it is to be able to connect. And it is sad to know that when you're in the people business, your ability to connect is key, because if you can't connect, you will not be able to correct the issues. And there, of course, will not be the type of feedback and also cooperation that you need from team members. So you have to be able to create a space of psychological safety, and you have to be able to create trust and to create synergy amongst team members. And that speaks specifically to our emotional intelligence. And I think it's one of those areas which I think for a very, very long time, the corporate space and others have done a great disservice by labeling this skill as a soft skill when in fact it's a critical skill. And people just need to know how to better connect with each other and to bring the very best out of everybody a part of the team, and to align them um, tasks based on their unique strengths. And you can only do that if you are able to connect with them on a deeply emotional level, which position you well to create the type of change which is needed.
You mentioned soft skills. We've talked about that many times on the show. There are hard skills and soft skills, and hard skills are those things like the MBA and the CPA and all of those things that can be letters after your name and that kind of thing, degrees, certifications. Um, the soft skills are hard to put on a resume. People can judge based off experience. You might have those soft skills, but really hard to quantify how good your soft skills are. And that's one of the things where veterans excel. Soft skills.
Correct. I agree with you 100%.
Soft skills are basically how well do you get along with people, and how can you motivate people, and how can you lead people, and will people follow you? How good of a team player are you? That kind of thing.
You can't fake it. You can't fake it.
No, you can't. People see right through you. So veterans excel at that because depending on what they did in the military, they've been immersed in having to get along with people that they maybe tend not to like, and
Correct.
in really bad situations, hot, wet, cold, tired, hungry, and still maintain motivation and mission accomplishment attitude. So, um, talk a little bit about the soft skills that veterans possess.
Yes, and I think it's one of our superpower, and oftentimes we tend to overlook it. And it's one of the key tool I think we have that makes us stand out. Um, and it has given us, well, furnish us really with a competitive edge, and we just need to be able to communicate that better. Because as you rightly said, we have to work with people, and we have to learn to get along. And we are thinking always about the major goal. And because we know full well that we cannot accomplish anything on a solo mission, that team spirit is something that we hold near and dear to us. And plus, it's a high trust organization, and we have to be able to create an environment of trust
Mm-hmm.
and cooperation. And I think you know this as well as I do, that if people don't trust you, they just will not go along with you. They will nod their heads. They will pay lip service, but you will never really be able to get the full support from them, because at the end of the day, there is a key piece that is missing. And because that trust element is not present, they will not be fully aligned and they will not be able to give up their best and ultimately serve the the real goal, which is ultimately contributing and not being a drag on the team.
Mm-hmm. And so, how is it you come into an organization that you know nothing about and identify those areas of weakness in how are you able to implement change?
Now, one of the things that I use specifically is a specific framework. I call it a C3 framework. And the aim of the C3 framework is really to bring about transformation. And transformation is achieved when we have an environment, as I mentioned earlier, of psychological safety. So the word transform speaks specifically to trust, respect, alignment, nurture, focus, optimize, recognize, and motivate. And once I step into that space, and of course, this will be done in conjunction with whether it be the hiring manager, whether it be the training and development officer, or that specific individual who's in charge of that department, you definitely come in and do your initial assessment and to get a feel as to what the challenges they think they are facing. And also you can best analyze what the situation is and you'll provide solution that meet their specific challenge. And it is during that phase when we do that initial assessment. Sometimes what I've found is that the people I do work with is that they can describe the symptoms, but not necessarily the root cause of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And many times when we're having that conversation, we realize that, hey, whilst you're mentioning these symptoms, there's also some other problems which you're not even aware of yet. And those can also be highlighted and pointed out in that one-on-one setting. And of course, we work together to create solutions as to how to fix those issues and to help to get the team motivated and running and to deliver results for our clients, which is our key because we are always client focused and we also believe strongly in teamwork solutions in delivering value for our clients. And we're so obsessed and passionate about that.
Wow. Okay, so if somebody's interested in checking out Teamwork Solutions and what you guys do, how do they find you?
The easiest way I would say definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. And from there, you can find everything else that is associated with me. And that is at my name, at Leroy Roberts at LinkedIn.
All right. And I'd like to give you the last word. If you're talking to somebody getting out of the military, British or American, what they're looking to get in entrepreneurship, start their own business, what kind of advice comes to mind?
The advice is definitely reach out. There are enough people out there just like you who are starting out and who are further ahead on the journey. And I would say definitely choose carefully and model those people who you think is doing what you would like to do and aim high. You'll never know because along the pathway, there are some people who have come to my rescue and my support that I never even thought that would have been possible for me to land those connections. So I would say definitely reach out for help. Help is available. And I am one of those persons. I'm more than happy to offer advice and help along the way.
All right, Leroy. Well, thanks for sharing your veteran entrepreneur success story, and look forward to seeing you guys' future success.
No, thank you so much, Joe. You're amazing.
All right, you bet. Thank you. All right, these two veterans are Oscar Mike.